I sat in the stillness of my apartment, the night before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My phone rang, slicing through the quiet. It was Richard, my fiance. "Hello? Richard, is everything okay?" I asked, sensing something off in his voice. "Elena, I can't marry you," Richard said, his voice devoid of the warmth I knew. A cold wave of shock washed over me. "What do you mean?" "This isn't funny, Richard. It's not a joke, Elena. I'm already married, to someone else." His words were like a dagger to my heart. "Married? But we're getting married tomorrow. How could you do this?" I struggled to keep my voice steady. "I just can't be with someone who overshadows me. You're a top executive, and I'm not. It's too much for me." His tone was emotionless. So this was about his ego. "You knew about my job. For 2 years you said nothing, and now this?" "I need someone simpler, someone who doesn't outdo me." The mix of hurt and disbelief inside me was boiling into anger. "And you decide this now, the night before our wedding? Who is she, Richard?" "It doesn't matter. I've made my choice." "You coward," I hissed, anger surging. "You let me plan our life together, and now you're backing out like this." "I'm sorry, Elena. It is what it is." "You're not sorry. You're a coward. I'm glad I know your true colors before it's too late." There was a pause. "You'll regret this, Elena. You need me." "I don't need a man who doesn't respect me. Goodbye, Richard." I ended the call, my hand shaking with a mix of rage and shock. Sitting alone, the magnitude of the conversation hit me. The man I thought I knew was nothing but a lie. But amidst the hurt, I felt a surprising relief. This wasn't just an ending. It was a beginning. My chance to rebuild my life without Richard's deceitful shadow. My heart hardened with determination. Richard had wounded me deeply, but I wouldn't let him get away with it. He would regret crossing me. I would make sure of that. I lay awake that night, the darkness of my bedroom mirroring the turmoil in my mind. How had I not seen Richard's true colors? Our relationship, once a source of joy, now felt like a well-crafted facade. The painful realization stung. I thought back to how it all started. My uncle, a well-respected businessman, had introduced me to Richard. "He's a promising sales manager," he had said. "You two might hit it off." I was reluctant, but I agreed to meet Richard out of respect for my uncle. Our first meeting was at a quiet cafe. Richard was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my career as a marketing executive. We clicked instantly. I thought I had found someone who understood and respected my ambitions. But as I lay there, replaying our conversations, the signs were clear. Richard's subtle digs at my achievements, his veiled comments about women in leadership, they were all red flags I had ignored. He was never proud of me. He was intimidated by me. I remembered the times he'd belittle my work. "It's just marketing, Elena. It's not like you're saving lives," he'd scoff. His words, once brushed off as harmless jokes, now echoed in my mind as clear indicators of his resentment. It dawned on me that his recent behavior, the late nights, the sudden business trips, it wasn't just work. He was seeing someone else. The pieces fell into place, forming a picture of betrayal. I got out of bed, my mind racing with anger and hurt. Richard had humiliated me, but I wasn't going to let him have the last word. He had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. I opened my laptop and began to draft an email to my colleagues. Richard and I had invited them to our wedding, and they deserved to know the truth. I wrote with a clear purpose, detailing Richard's betrayal without sounding bitter. I wanted the facts to speak for themselves. As I hit send, a sense of empowerment washed over me. This was just the beginning. Richard had tried to break me, but instead he had awakened a strength I never knew I had. I would make him regret ever taking me for granted. The game had just begun. The next morning I woke up to a flurry of messages. Colleagues, friends, family, everyone was shocked. The news of Richard's deceit had spread like wildfire. There was an outpouring of support for me, but among these, one message caught my eye. It was from Richard. "Can we meet?" "I think there's been a misunderstanding," his message read. Misunderstanding? The audacity of that word made my blood boil. I agreed to meet him, not for reconciliation, but to confront him, to face the man who had tried to break me. We met at a park, a neutral ground away from prying eyes. Richard was there, looking disheveled, a stark contrast to the composed man I once knew. "Elena, thank you for meeting me. I think you got it all wrong," he started, but I cut him off. "Save it, Richard. There's nothing you can say to justify your actions. You're a liar and a cheat. What did you expect, calling off our wedding and admitting you're already married? Richard's face reddened. I didn't expect you to react this way. You're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion? You were living a double life, Richard. What did you expect me to do? Smile and wish you a happy marriage? He shifted uncomfortably. Look, I know I messed up, but can't we put this behind us? I mean, we were good together, weren't we? I stared at him in disbelief. Put this behind us? You humiliated me, Richard, and now you expect me to just forget it? Elena, please, I know I've made a mistake, but I need you. My job is at risk because of this mess. You have connections. You can help me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want my help after everything you've done? He took a step closer. Elena, we can sort this out. I know people are talking, but we can fix this. Together. I stepped back, my resolve hardening. The only thing that needs fixing is your moral compass, Richard. We are done. And as for your job, you should have thought about that before you betrayed me. I turned and walked away, leaving Richard standing there, a picture of desperation. I felt a surge of strength within me. Richard thought he could manipulate me, but he was wrong. I was not the same person he had toyed with. The game had changed, and I was now the one in control. The days following my confrontation with Richard were a whirlwind. My mind was constantly racing, not with sadness but with a burning desire for retribution. Richard had tried to crush me, but he had only fueled my determination. I started by reaching out to a few trusted colleagues and friends, laying the groundwork for my plan. Word of mouth was powerful, and I intended to use it to expose Richard's true character. I shared my story not as a victim, but as a survivor of deceit. My narrative was factual, yet poignant, a tale of betrayal by a man who was a master of manipulation. Then came the opportunity I was waiting for. An industry event was coming up, one Richard and I were supposed to attend together. I decided to go alone, knowing well that Richard would be there. The evening of the event, I walked into the room with confidence. I could feel the eyes on me, the whispered conversations. I spotted Richard in the crowd, his face a mask of unease. As I mingled, I overheard snippets of conversation. That's Elena. Can you believe what Richard did to her? The word was spreading, just as I had planned. Then, Richard approached me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. Elena, we need to talk. You're ruining me. I looked him straight in the eyes. I'm not doing anything, Richard. If your reputation is ruined, you have only yourself to blame. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making me the villain. I pulled my arm away. I don't need to make you a villain, Richard. You did that all by yourself. As I walked away, I could feel Richard's eyes burning into my back, but I didn't care. I was no longer the woman he thought he could control. The event was a success. By the end of the night, Richard's deceit was the talk of the town. His professional reputation was crumbling, just as he had tried to shatter mine. But this was just the beginning. I knew Richard would not go down without a fight. I needed to be ready for whatever he had planned. My resolve was firm. I would not back down. This was my battle, and I was determined to win. A few days after the industry event, I was at my office when my phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was Richard. Against my better judgment, I answered, curiosity getting the better of me. Elena, you need to stop this madness. Richard's voice was laced with frustration. This isn't my doing, Richard. It's the consequence of your actions, I replied coolly. You're destroying my career. I've lost clients, friends. His voice trailed off into a mix of anger and desperation. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to betray me and lie to everyone, I retorted. I need your help, Elena. You have the power to fix this, to clear my name, he pleaded. Help you? After everything you've done? You must be delusional. I couldn't hide the contempt in my voice. Elena, please, we were good together once. Can't you remember that? There was a hint of something in his voice that sounded almost like sincerity. All I remember is a liar who was leading a double life, I snapped back. There was a pause on the line, and when he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was colder, more calculating. You'll regret this, Elena. If I go down, I'll make sure you come down with me. A chill ran down my spine at his threat, but I refused to show my fear. Is that a threat, Richard? It's a promise, he said, his voice now a menacing whisper. Good luck with that, I said, and ended the call. As I sat back in my chair, I realized that this was far from over. Richard's threat loomed over me, but I was not about to let him intimidate me. I had come too far to back down now. I started to document everything, the calls, messages, any interaction with Richard. If he was planning to come after me, I would be ready. But as I delved deeper into my preparations, I found an unexpected ally. One of Richard's colleagues reached out to me, offering information about Richard's past misdemeanors at work, instances of credit stealing, manipulation, even harassment. It was more than I could have hoped for. Armed with this new information, I knew what I had to do. It was time to take the fight to Richard. I was going to expose him for who he truly was, not just to our social circle, but to his professional world as well. Richard had started this war, but I was going to finish it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With the information provided by Richard's colleague, I meticulously compiled a dossier of his professional misconduct. It was a damning portrait of a man who had built his career on deceit and manipulation. I reached out to Richard's company's HR department, presenting them with the evidence. The response was swift and decisive. Richard was suspended pending a full investigation. The news spread quickly, and soon Richard's professional reputation was in tatters. But I wasn't done yet. I had one last card to play. I filed a legal claim against Richard for emotional distress and the financial losses incurred due to the canceled wedding. It was a bold move, but I was determined to hold him accountable. As I walked out of my lawyer's office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had stood up to Richard, and I had won. But it was a hollow victory. The man I had once loved was now nothing but a bitter memory. In the midst of all this, my uncle reached out to me. "Elena, you've handled this situation with incredible strength and grace," he said. I shrugged. I did what I had to do. "There's something I want to discuss with you," he continued. "I've been thinking about retirement, and I believe you're the perfect person to take over the business." I was taken aback. "Me? But, Uncle, there are others far more qualified." "You have a keen mind for business, Elena. You've shown that time and again. I can't think of anyone better to lead the company into the future," he insisted. I was hesitant at first, but as we talked, the idea began to take root. This was my chance to step out of Richard's shadow and make a name for myself. "I'll do it," I finally said. "I'll take over the business." My uncle smiled. "I knew you would. I have every confidence in you." As I left my uncle's office, I felt a sense of purpose and excitement for the first time in months. I was going to lead my uncle's company, and I was going to make it my own. Richard had tried to break me, but he had only made me stronger. I was no longer the woman he had betrayed. I was a leader, a fighter, and a survivor. As I looked ahead to the future, I knew there were challenges ahead, but I was ready for them. I had emerged from this ordeal stronger and more determined than ever. Richard's betrayal had been the catalyst for my transformation. I had lost a fiancé, but I had found myself. And that was worth more than any wedding could ever be.
I'm Winter. I happen to be a fairly known painter in the art community, and my husband is a big-shot lawyer, so there are ridiculously high chances of me being recognized. To avoid being recognized, I have to use fake names. Sorry about that, but both me and my husband really want to protect our privacy. I hope you guys won't mind. So I am Winter, and my husband is Damien. We met in college and are your typical college sweethearts. We belong to the opposite spectrums because he was studying law while I was into fine arts. We were both very accomplished in our own subjects and managed to make it fairly big in our own way. But Damien was more well-known because his profession made much more money and headlines than me. I am a quiet painter and mostly do commission work now. Damien earns a lot more than me since he has a stable job while I work part-time. It's fun being a painter, though, because I don't have to leave home as much and work in an office. This also means that I'm an introvert and tend to keep a low profile. Apparently, that's what set off my mother-in-law, Sabrina, when I first met her. I knew I wouldn't like her. I already knew from Damien that she was a money-minded woman. I also knew how she had stolen all of Damien's inheritance from his dad and spent it on herself to buy a luxurious house. However, Damien had forgiven her for it, but for some reason it bothered me a lot. I couldn't believe that a mother would steal from her own son, so I was always a little skeptical about meeting her. When I finally met her, I found out that she was even more horrible than I thought. When she found out that I'm a painter, she looked at Damien and said, "Why on earth are you with the poor painter? You cannot be with her, Damien. She doesn't match our status." "Mom, don't say that. Winter is actually a very good painter and very accomplished for her age. Plus, I love her," Damien defended. "You can't be serious, Damien. A woman like her cannot be your wife." Sabrina tried hard to tell Damien that he should break up with me. I just sat there looking stunned as hell. I really didn't know what to do or how to react. Sabrina truly was a shallow lady, and that day I saw it with my own eyes. Ever since then, I kept my distance from her. Eventually, Damien and I got married. Sabrina threw a huge tantrum and tried everything to stop the wedding, but no one was on her side. She was exceptionally angry at me because she thought that I was taking her rich son away. These are her own words, guys. She called me a gold digger and said that I was marrying Damien for money. I guess she was scared that Damien would stop sending her money once he got married. Yes, he gave her a monthly allowance after she stopped working. Damien then cut her allowance a little after our marriage because he had just bought a house and he was making the mortgage payments. Sabrina didn't like that one bit. She screamed at me for being behind this and vowed revenge, and she did just that. Ever since Damien had cut off Sabrina's allowance, she did a lot of things to harm my reputation. She actually told all family members that I was a gold digger and was isolating Damien because I wanted all his money for myself. I got a lot of nasty texts from her and some family members as well. Damien shut them down, but refused to go low contact with his mother. This was a problem for me because she regularly showed up at the house to harass me. At that time, I was working on a commission piece and attempting to do a very difficult painting. My client had paid me $500,000, and it took me 3 full years to finish it. It was a highly detailed piece, so I was putting in a lot of effort to make it just like he wanted. Sabrina knew that I was busy and showed up regularly to interrupt me and harass me verbally. My husband told her off but didn't ban her from the house. That's why she had the courage to do what she did. One day when I was back from a shopping trip, I found Sabrina sitting in my living room and enjoying my wine. I ignored her and went to my room because I didn't want to give her any more attention than necessary. I went straight to my painting, which I had completed already. I had left it out to dry and wanted to check on it. When I went into my workroom, I saw that my painting had been hacked. It literally looked like someone had taken a knife and hacked it. Seeing years' worth of work in absolute ruin broke my heart. I couldn't believe my eyes, and I immediately started to cry. I already knew who had done it, but I didn't have the energy to confront her. Instead, I bawled my eyes out as I held my destroyed painting in my hands. Within a few moments, Sabrina entered the room looking super happy. Well, what do we have here?" "Oh, crying over a painting, I see. How sad for you, Winter." "Shut up, Sabrina. I know you did it. You did it, didn't you?" "Why?" "I spent years creating this piece." "Oops, I'm caught. Do you think I care, Winter?" "No, I don't. You deserve this." Sabrina was laughing at me while I cried. She was facing me while I was facing the door, so when Damien arrived at the door behind her, I saw him, but she didn't. I didn't give away the fact that Damien was home and was listening to what she was saying. Instead, I cried and said, "How could you do this, Sabrina? What have I done to deserve this?" "What have you done? Let me tell you what you've done, Winter. You took my son away, and because of you, he cut down on my allowance. Do you think I would forgive you for that? Absolutely not. This is what you deserve for stealing my rich lawyer son from me. You are the most delusional and greedy woman I have ever come across. I didn't take your son from you and make him give you a small allowance. He did it for his own reasons, but you are responsible for destroying my painting. You need to pay me the $500,000 that this painting was worth." Sabrina started to laugh at me and said that there was a fat chance I was getting any money from her. She was still laughing when my husband stepped into the room and asked what was going on. When I told him that Sabrina had destroyed the painting, Sabrina tried to play the victim and said, "Your wife is being mean to me, Damien. I thought it was an abandoned painting, so I just decided to have some fun with it. Now your wife is saying I did it on purpose. Yes, you did it on purpose, and you need to give me the $500,000 that it costs. How dare you try to scam me, Winter? That worthless thing can't cost that much. Besides, it was a mistake and I said sorry." "Damien, look at what your wife is saying. She really expects me to pay her $500,000 for that crap. You don't have to pay her $500,000, Mom. There's no reason to do that anymore." Sabrina looked elated when Damien said this to her. She was jumping with joy because she thought that her son was taking her side. She looked back at me and smirked while I cried my eyes out. I had been working on the painting forever, and Sabrina didn't even need to spend much time destroying it. All she did was hack it with a knife, and that was it. I was broken seeing my precious painting in ruins, but I was more heartbroken by what my husband said. I had expected Damien to take my side in this one instance, but he wasn't even doing that. I had a really hard time believing that my husband would still choose his mother over me now, but I didn't create a scene. I wanted to see what Damien was thinking, but Sabrina was over the moon. "That's my son, God. I was really starting to worry that your wife had turned you into someone else. I knew you would take my side. It was a small mistake, and Winter is throwing a tantrum over nothing. Look at her crying like the world is ending. I wonder why you married her in the first place. I married her because she is an amazing woman, and I love her more than anyone in this world. I know you love her, but you surely don't love her more than me, right? I did love you a lot, Mom, but I don't think I even have any respect for you anymore. You disgust me now." "What? What are you saying, Damien? You disgust me, Mom." "That's what I'm saying. You think I didn't hear what you told my wife. I know you destroyed her painting on purpose because you think she stole me from you." Sabrina looked shocked when Damien said that. I was also taken aback because I hadn't expected him to do this at all. I knew that my husband wasn't heartless and wouldn't ignore my emotions so easily. He was going to stand up for me once he knew the truth. He had apparently heard me cry and came to check on what was going on. I saw him stand behind the door and didn't say anything because I wanted him to see what his mother was like when he came in and sided with Sabrina. I was heartbroken, but I still held on to some hope. I was right to hope because my husband was doing something about Sabrina. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, was surprised and started to look really nervous. She said, "What? What are you talking about, Damien? I didn't do it on purpose. Do you think lying to your lawyer's son will be a good idea?" "I don't think so, Mom. I heard you say those words to my wife. You don't have to act all innocent because I know you are not." "Okay, fine, Damien. I did it on purpose. I'm jealous of Winter because she has been taking up all your time. I don't like sharing you, Damien. What kind of messed up is that?" "Mom, you were jealous of my wife and ended up destroying something that she has been working hard on. How can you justify that?" "Why are you yelling at me, Damien? I'm sorry, okay? I don't even know why you're making such a fuss over a stupid painting. I can buy the same one for $5. You would say that because you're stupid and don't know anything about art. It doesn't matter how much the painting costs. What matters is that you have disrespected my wife and destroyed her handiwork. You have to pay for that." "But you just said I don't have to pay for that, Damien." "I said that you don't have to pay $500,000. I'm suing you for $1 million instead." The look of shock on Sabrina's face said it all. She hadn't expected Damien to say that. Instead of asking her to pay $500,000, my husband was actually informing her that he was suing her for $1 million. I was happy to see that my husband was finally taking a stand for me. He was going to punish his evil mother for what she did to me and make her pay what I owed. I know why he told Sabrina that he would sue her for $1 million, but I won't tell you guys. You can hear it from him. Sabrina was shaking with fear on hearing about a lawsuit of $1 million and said, "What? You will sue me? That too for $1 million. But why? Have you forgotten how you stole my inheritance from Dad and spent it to buy yourself a big house? I want that money back along with the cost of the artwork that you destroyed." "What are you saying, Damien? That was a long time ago. Surely you wouldn't do that to me. You know I needed a house." "No, you already had a house and didn't need one. You stole from me because you are nothing but a greedy, shallow woman. I will never forgive you for what you did, Mom. I'm done with you. I'm suing you for that money." No, son, don't do this to me. I made a mistake back then. What's done is done. Let's leave that in the past." "I would have left it in the past, but I'm not going to do that. I need that money back now, Mom. If you hadn't messed with my wife because of your own jealousy and greed, I would have forgiven you for your mistake. But now that is not happening." Sabrina could see how angry Damien was. I had actually never seen Damien that angry, to be honest. He was like a raging volcano because of his mother. His past hurt and feelings of betrayal had come back in my mind. He wasn't going to let things go this time. He was finally doing something for me and himself. Sabrina knew that Damien was serious and she had messed up. She started to cry like a child while my tears were gone. I was smiling because I was proud of my husband. Sabrina cried and said, "Your mother made a mistake. Please, dear, forgive her. I really did something stupid. I deserve your anger, Damien. I accept that wholeheartedly. Please forgive me this time." "I already told you, Mom. I won't be forgiving you anymore. I've had enough of your nonsense. I draw the line when you tried to hurt my wife," Damien replied firmly. "I know I messed up, Damien. I'm really sorry. I swear this won't happen again. Look, I'll even apologize to your wife, Winter. Please forgive me. I made a mistake and I am sorry," Sabrina tried to say, hoping that Damien would calm down and make this go away. She was scared and wanted to calm down her son and de-escalate the situation. But for that, she needed my forgiveness. She had no one in her corner and turned to me for help. I don't know why she thought I would help her out. It was hilarious because she still expected me to forgive her and maybe help her get out of this mess. Well, I wasn't doing anything like that, I thought, instead looked surprised and angry and said, "There is no use trying to say sorry now, Sabrina. I will never forgive you. I tried my best to have a good relationship with you, but you intentionally hurt me because you were mad Damien had stopped spending so much money on you," I added. "I have realized my mistake, Winter. I swear I'm really sorry for what I've done. It was completely wrong, and I take accountability for that," Sabrina pleaded. "I know you're not truly sorry. The real reason you're begging for forgiveness is that you want to avoid the lawsuit. You don't want to pay up and lose your lifestyle. You deserve whatever is happening to you," I retorted. "Why are you being so cruel, Winter? I already said sorry. Maybe you are the greedy one since you're trying to scam me out of $500,000, Sabrina accused. "There is no way your painting is worth that much. In that case, why don't you let Damien sue you? That way you will find out exactly how much my painting costs once the courts evaluate it. I will support Damien in suing you anyway, Sabrina," I said firmly. At that point, Sabrina knew that no one was on her side. Now she was desperate for forgiveness and started to beg us both. Gone was her high-class attitude that she loved to throw in my face. Now she was groveling and trying to ask for forgiveness. She was willing to do anything to avoid paying money through the lawsuit, but the lawsuit wasn't her only problem now. What my husband said next absolutely blew her away. He said, "There is no use begging for mercy now, Mom. You made your bed and now you will have to lie in it. I'm done with you." "How can you do this, Damien? "How can you threaten to sue your own mother?" Sabrina exclaimed. "I'm not threatening you, Mom. I'm telling you exactly what I will do. You are not a child that I need to threaten. If you do this, you'll lose me, Damien. We won't have a relationship anymore, and I'll never forgive you," Sabrina pleaded. "Is that supposed to scare me, Mom? Because then you have clearly underestimated how angry I am. I'm sick of your behavior, Mom. For years you took advantage of me, and now you're bullying my wife. I will never forgive you for this, and I don't want a relationship with you anyway," Damien responded firmly. "What? You don't want me in your life?" Sabrina was shocked. "That's right, Mom. I don't want you in my life anymore. I know you only love me so much because of my money. Well, guess what, Mom? I won't be helping you out financially anymore. I'm cutting you off in all ways possible," Damien declared. Hearing this, Sabrina broke down in tears and started to cry hysterically. She said a lot of things through her tears. She told us how he was being unfair to her. She also told Damien that he was making a mistake by taking my side and abandoning her over a simple mistake. She even blamed me and said that I had poisoned my husband against her, and that I was a gold digger who wanted to keep Damien away from his mother. It was hilarious watching Sabrina have a breakdown and throw a major tantrum. She cried and cried, but no one was listening to her. Damien was as stoic as I was. Instead of supporting his mother or comforting her as she cried, he came to me and wiped my tears with his handkerchief. I was really moved by this gesture and hugged him for taking my side. Sabrina, however, flew into a rage and tried to attack me. That's when Damien got between us and held her back. He was even more pissed now and threatened to call the cops on Sabrina if she didn't leave. He also told her never to show her face in our house again. Sabrina got scared after seeing Damien's anger and left as soon as she could. After Sabrina was gone, Damien sat me down and actually apologized for not standing up for me sooner. "I'm sorry, Winter. I have to take responsibility for what happened today. I've been a bad husband and didn't take your concerns seriously," he admitted. "It's okay, Damien. I can understand why you didn't want to lose your mother. I'm glad you stood up for me today. I can't believe my mom destroyed your painting, Winter. I'm so sorry for this. I know how much effort you gave to this piece. I feel awful. Don't worry, though. I will make Mom pay," Damien assured me. "Are you really sure about the lawsuit, Damien? Will you really go ahead with it?" I asked cautiously. "I meant every word I said, Winter. I will sue my mom, and I will cut her off in every way possible. I let her disrespect you for a long time, but now she has to pay for what she's done. I will protect you and cut her off because she doesn't deserve to be in our lives and take advantage of us anymore," Damien affirmed. I wasn't angry at my husband anymore. He came through for me and defended me against his evil mother. He was truly my hero now. I wasn't going to push him to actually go forward with the lawsuit because I knew it was hard to take your own mother to court. So I let my husband decide if he wanted to go through with it. To my surprise, he said that he would be suing Sabrina and cutting her off like he had said. I will be honest here, but that made me really happy. I was finally seeing some hope in getting rid of my evil mother-in-law, and thank God for helping me out. Damien and I talked about a lot of things in our marriage, and he apologized for not standing up for me sooner. Days passed, and Sabrina continued to contact us. She was too scared to show up at our house because Damien had threatened to call the cops on her, but that didn't stop her from harassing us over the phone. She called, texted, and even left voicemails. Sabrina also tried to get family members involved, but no one dared to go against Damien. Some of the elders were pretty mad at her for being so nasty to me and told her off for being such a horrible woman. I was enjoying hearing about these things from a cousin who was always on my side. Sabrina was trying hard to get our forgiveness and even asked me for mercy. She became truly unhinged when she was sent the court papers for the case. She amped up contact and finally showed up at our house. after which the cops came and removed her from our property. Sabrina did a lot of things, but I can't go into details about it. I'm pretty sure I could write a book on how hard she tried to make the lawsuit go away, but nothing worked because my husband was adamant about making her pay. The case went to court and the settlement was made. The final amount that Sabrina had to pay was well over $1 million. Anyway, Sabrina cried in court when the judge made his decision public. She knew that she would have to sell everything she owned just to pay the money from the lawsuit. Now that Damien was not giving her any money, she was back at work and didn't even manage to find a decent one. She doesn't earn much and works as a receptionist somewhere. The house she was so proud of had to be sold to make the debt payments. Damien and I profited a lot from the lawsuit in general. With that money, I tried to pay back my patron because I couldn't deliver the artwork as I had promised. To my great delight, he actually told me to keep the money and work on a separate piece. His wife loved my painting, so he gave me leeway because he really wanted to give her a custom painting from me. That really brought tears to my eyes because I had never thought that anyone would appreciate my art skills so much. I told Damien what happened, and even he said that he was super proud of me. So Sabrina was wrong in thinking that I would never match up to her level. Well, I showed her how much I was worth, and she finally got to pay for her bad actions. I'm happy to inform you guys that I am now living a Sabrina-free life, and I am much happier than before. Damien and I are also expecting our first child, so pray for us. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope you all have a good life. No way, that's impossible. We're living together. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life. I stood there dazed, holding the phone after the call was suddenly cut off. The lawyer couldn't help but burst out laughing. Olivia looked at the lawyer, confused. He was wiping tears with a handkerchief. My name is Karen, and I am the CEO. I've been married to my husband, James, for 3 years. We don't have children. We're both so busy with work, often even on weekends, that we hardly find time for long talks. We mostly see each other in passing, so we try to sync our schedules for overseas trips during our long breaks. It's only once a year, but it's something we both really look forward to. When we got married, we decided to buy a condo on the upper floor of a Bay Area tower. It was a stretch financially, but we thought about the future value of the property. Thanks to that, we're happy with our current life. I have a close friend from high school, Olivia. We sometimes grab lunch together. Olivia is beautiful and has high standards for men. She's not married yet, but is eager to be. She looks for well-educated, high-earning men on dating apps and won't compromise on their income. One day I was having lunch with Olivia at a cafe near a park. We went to high school and university together, even shared the same classes. That's why we've consulted each other about various things over the years, knowing quite a bit about each other's dating histories and types. During our student days, we shared both fun and sad times. Those are cherished memories now. Since marrying James 3 years ago, we've both gotten busier and the chances to meet have decreased. Now we only see each other a few times a year. I'll come visit your condo next time, Olivia suddenly said. She had never been to my place before. Then, on the weekend, she came over. I could tell she was amazed even through the inner calm at the entrance. As soon as I opened the door, Olivia looked impressed. Wow, this place is like a mansion, and that elevator ride was so long. I had chosen a spacious upper-floor condo because it was a once-in-a-lifetime purchase. It's even more spacious than a house. It's beautiful, really incredible, Olivia said as she looked around the condo, turning her head in every direction. Great location and an upper floor in a high-rise like this must have cost a fortune, Olivia remarked with a slight smile. Yeah, you could say it's $1 million condominium. It's got great security, too, I said, but Olivia cut me off. reacting only to the term $1 million condominium. "It must be over $1 million. Your husband must be making a lot," she said, her eyes wide with astonishment. That was so typical of Olivia. She always had high standards for men, especially regarding their income. "James's salary is quite good for his age, I guess," I said vaguely. I felt it was tacky to be too explicit. Olivia had a look that seemed to hint at some ulterior motive. "Can I use your bathroom?" she asked and left the living room. I directed her to the bathroom and then started preparing tea in the kitchen. I was concerned when Olivia took a while to come back. I was about to check on her when she returned, saying, "Just replying to an email." Olivia usually didn't make excuses like that, so I felt a slight sense of unease. While enjoying the cookies Olivia brought as a gift and having tea, she asked, "Can I stay till the evening?" She apparently wanted to greet James. It had been since our wedding that Olivia last saw James, so it wasn't unnatural for her to want to see him. I decided to check with James just in case. James was happy about it. "I might finish work early," he replied in an email. I told Olivia it was okay, and then I started preparing dinner. Olivia was using her smartphone, but then she stood up and went to the bathroom again. I didn't notice while cooking, but Olivia was gone for quite a while. When she came back, she was wearing a familiar necklace. It was my necklace. As I stared at the necklace, Olivia gave an embarrassed smile. "How do I look? Does it suit me?" She posed like a model. Seeing my stunned expression, Olivia started laughing. "Oh, come on, I'm just kidding." I found it and thought it was cute. It must have been super expensive, right? "A premium piece for sure," Olivia said, sounding like a child making an excuse for a mistake. "That's a gift for James." "Wow, he must be really wealthy to afford something like this," Olivia sighed. But more importantly, that necklace was stored in the closet in the bedroom. It seemed like Olivia had pretended to go to the bathroom and instead went to the bedroom to peek into the closet. I couldn't believe her actions. However, I didn't want to seem petty, so I just emphasized that it was a precious item. Taking advantage of my mild reaction, Olivia made a surprising request. "Can I borrow this necklace for a while? I've got a date with a doctor I met on a dating app." "I want to wear it for that. Please," she pleaded, putting her hands together as if praying. Reluctantly, I decided to lend it to her. "All right, but take good care of it. Like I said earlier, it's a gift for James." As soon as Olivia knew she could borrow it, she smiled and started touching the necklace gently. "Of course I understand," she said, though she seemed to ignore my words. When I finished preparing the meal, I pretended to go to the bathroom to check the bedroom. Sure enough, the closet in the bedroom and the chest beside the bed weren't fully closed. Olivia must have opened every drawer and door she could find. There were fingerprints on the jewelry, watches, and precious metals. She might have touched things, but probably didn't intend to borrow them. The shoes seemed to have been tried on, and the heels were bent out of shape. This was clearly going too far. I went back to the living room and asked Olivia, "You touched various things in the bedroom, didn't you? The shoes are out of shape, and there are fingerprints on the watch." Olivia puffed out her cheeks a bit instead of looking sorry. "Please don't do that again," I told her. Olivia went back to her normal face and said, "Sorry." I didn't want to make a big deal out of it and risk hurting our friendship, so I just laughed it off lightly. That's when James came home. He was holding a box of cake. It was the first time James and Olivia had seen each other since our wedding. It was awkward at first, but they slowly started talking, and by dinner, they were chatting like old friends. While I was cleaning the dishes, they were laughing together. "My boss is terrible, right?" James said, laughing. "I envy James's team," Olivia added. James was smiling, his eyes crinkling with laughter. "That's not true," he replied. I was a bit uncomfortable seeing Olivia touch James so casually, but I thought it was better than them being distant. After all, James wasn't usually the type of man Olivia went out with. About a month after Olivia's visit, I noticed a change in James. He spent more time on his smartphone, which he usually didn't do. He often seemed distracted when I spoke to him and asked me to repeat myself. He always took his phone with him, even to the bathroom. It was a noticeable change. I felt like I was becoming a cheated-on wife. I thought about checking James's phone once, but I hesitated to even touch it. Our conversations at home became increasingly rare. James started working on weekends much more often. He was hardly ever at home on weekends. Originally, we barely saw each other on weekdays, but now we weren't seeing each other on weekends either. It felt like we were living separately, even though we were in the same house. Moreover, we started sleeping in separate bedrooms under the excuse of his tiredness. I was thinking about divorce or separation when I found divorce papers on the living room table. Upon closer inspection, James had already signed them. Although I had suspected it, actually seeing them still shocked me. With trembling hands, I called James. "I just got home and saw this on the table. What does this mean?" "It means exactly what it looks like. I want a divorce," James replied. I pressed him for a real reason. "I've fallen in love with someone else. It's not just an affair, I'm serious about it." It was clearly cheating then. I heard a familiar female voice on the phone. It was Olivia. "I'm dating James now. I even want to marry him," she said. Though I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed made my heart race, and I broke out in a cold sweat. "I fell for James the moment I saw him at your house. We exchanged contact details and started messaging. One thing led to another, and here we are," Olivia explained. Her tone was harsh. Maybe this was her true nature. "James says there's nothing left to discuss. Can you just sign the divorce papers and send them off?" Olivia asked. I wanted to talk things over, so I asked her to tell James to come home. "No way. We're living together now. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life," she replied, and then the call ended abruptly. I stood there unable to move for a while after that. Sleepless nights continued for me. James didn't come home. I couldn't bring myself to touch the divorce papers. They just sat there untouched. Furthermore, Olivia kept sending me multiple photos of her and James together, flaunting her relationship. It seemed to be an intimate relationship, but this felt like harassment. My mental health deteriorated, my complexion worsened, and sometimes I became vacant even during the day. People around me became worried and strongly suggested I go to the hospital. I ended up being somewhat forcibly taken for treatment and started taking medication. I managed to find some peace and started to sleep again. I could somehow go to work, but then an unbelievable thing happened. When I returned from the hospital, something fell off in the room. Going to the bedroom and opening the closet, I found that bags and jewelry were missing. The count of jewelry and watches in the chest was off too. There was only one person who could have done this. Why would she do something like this? What had I ever done to her? My insomnia came back, and I had more sleepless nights, barely getting through my days. During counseling at the hospital, when I mentioned the theft at home, I was strongly advised to consult a lawyer. I contacted the company's lawyer right away and set up an appointment. The lawyer asked me first, "What would you like to do?" "I'll get a divorce. I want those two to face proper consequences," I answered immediately, surprising even myself. Just a little while ago, I was unsure what to do. I couldn't believe how easily those words came out of my mouth. Perhaps I really wanted to punish them after being tormented so unfairly. A week later, I received a message from Olivia. I had sent her a certified letter. "Hey, what are you thinking sending a certified letter to my workplace?" Olivia sounded pretty angry, her voice filled with rage. "You must have expected at least this much. Anyway, I'm leaving everything to my lawyer now." I hung up the phone. Olivia called several times after that, but I ignored all of them. Then James called. I had sent a certified letter to his parents' house. Apparently, his affair being exposed at home caused a huge uproar. I wanted to burst out laughing at his self-inflicted predicament, but managed to restrain myself. Feeling that leaving it all to the lawyer wouldn't be enough to calm my feelings, I decided to confront them both. I would denounce them thoroughly on the spot. The lawyer arranged the date and time, and we decided to have the discussion at the law office. A few days later, the two reluctantly showed up at the law office. I thought they would bring their own lawyer, but it seemed they came alone. Olivia stormed into the office, flinging the door open. James followed, looking uncomfortable. "Finally, we meet, you coward," Olivia said, not hiding her anger at all. James tried to calm her down. "You've been avoiding us all this time. Our wedding has been delayed because of you," Olivia said, looking like she might throw her bag at me any moment. James was desperately trying to hold her back as I watched them with a feeling of pity. The lawyer nodded at me. "Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language occurs, we will immediately call the police," the lawyer said. The mention of the police made Olivia stiffen. With the lawyer's intervention, Olivia and James took their seats, becoming calmer. We sat across from each other at the office table, ready to start the discussion. "James, you're seeking a divorce, correct?" I asked. Olivia sat angrily while James slumped, looking defeated. "We agree to the divorce. However, since your relationship is considered adultery, we will ask for alimony," I stated. James's face clouded over. "I'll agree to the divorce, but once the alimony is paid, don't contact us ever," he said. I quietly nodded in agreement. Olivia looked displeased, maybe expecting more resistance from me. When the lawyer began discussing the alimony amount, Olivia snapped. I said any amount is fine, we have plenty of money. Olivia sat arrogantly with her arms crossed. The lawyer looked at her with interest, then said, "Oh yes, didn't he tell you James is the president of a jewelry company with a yearly revenue of $3 billion? James looked up frantically, trying to restrain Olivia's arm. "An affair is nothing to us. I'll even give a proper share of the property," Olivia continued excitedly, her face flushed. James tried hard to calm her down. Olivia shook off his hand and continued, "You can barely make ends meet on your salary, right?" She scoffed with a laugh. The lawyer burst into uncontrollable laughter. Olivia looked at him with a puzzled expression. The lawyer, wiping tears with a handkerchief, said, "Actually, the president is Karen." Olivia was dumbstruck, her mouth hanging open. James hung his head, his body trembling slightly. "James is just an ordinary employee with no position at Karen's company," I stated. Olivia started laughing loudly. "What are you talking about? Are you really a lawyer? Can lawyers lie?" she asked. The lawyer calmly replied, "Why not ask James next to you if what I said is a lie?" James, meanwhile, just bit his lip, looking down. Olivia, growing anxious, grabbed James's arms and began shaking him. "You said you were the president of a $3 billion jewelry company. That's not a lie, right?" James remained silent, covering his face with his hands, uttering inaudible moans. Olivia, growing more and more desperate, gripped his arms tighter, repeatedly asking, "Answer me. It's not a lie, right?" James finally whispered in a raspy voice, "I'm sorry." The room fell into a deep silence. Olivia's strength seemed to leave her body, and she let her hands that were gripping James fall limply. "You said you were the president of a company making $3 billion a year. she muttered almost to herself. James's single apology had plunged Olivia into despair. She stood up trembling. "It's a lie, right?" "There's no way you're the president." Olivia pointed accusingly at me. "Why didn't I know about this after all we've shared?" I spoke to Olivia calmly, as if guiding her. "Just because we're close friends doesn't mean I tell you everything, especially since you were so fixated on money. I had no intention of telling you." I looked Olivia straight in the eyes without averting my gaze. Olivia seemed to lose all her energy and slumped down. "Then that house, of course. The house is in my name, so James will be the one leaving," I continued. Olivia fell silent, and James continued to hold his head. The lawyer began to present the evidence I had first gathered. These photos of James and Olivia together, they were the photos she sent to my phone, now printed out. The lawyer placed a voice recorder on the table and played a recorded conversation. "Why would you send something like this?" Olivia's voice filled the room, while James seemed to be holding back tears. "Hey, still clinging to the past. I want a divorce quickly." "I know what you're clinging to. It's James's income. He's the president of a $3 billion jewelry company, right?" Olivia said, perhaps embarrassed, and covered her face with her hands. "Hurry up and divorce and leave that condo. It'll be mine soon. Too bad James didn't come back to you. I'll give you as much alimony as you want." "Poor thing, your aim was the money, not James," the recorded conversation continued. James looked down, tears spilling onto his pants. James and Olivia fell silent. "Do you think this is over?" I asked. "What else is there, Olivia? She broke into the house when Karen wasn't there and stole several items, didn't you?" The lawyer said calmly. James looked shocked, apparently unaware of this. "Hey, what's this about stealing?" Olivia bit her lower lip, her hands shaking. "No, not me. I don't know anything," she said. The lawyer placed a tablet on the table and played a video. It showed Olivia sneaking into the bedroom, taking bags and jewelry, and stuffing them into her bag. Olivia stared wide-eyed at the footage. "What is this? Why are you recording me? Isn't this illegal surveillance?" she asked. James covered his face with his hands. "Inside our house, we've always had security cameras. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Who would think you break in to steal?" I started to get a headache from their ridiculous argument. "And you used my key without permission. I wanted those things. It's your fault for not buying them for me," Olivia argued. They kept arguing, ignoring us and the lawyer, and I could only watch in disbelief. "Please save your arguments for later. Regarding this theft, we will be filing a police report," I said. Olivia seemed to panic at the mention of the police. "The police? That's a bit much, isn't it? I just borrowed something from a friend," she protested. "I never gave you permission to borrow anything," I replied calmly. "Besides, you're not a friend. You were just a classmate. That's why I'm filing a police report." Olivia seemed to realize. She was defeated, and her attitude turned gloomy. "Don't say that. I'll pay for it. I'll make up for it. Just please don't call the police." Olivia started to kneel and apologize. I looked down at her and said coldly, "You're going to compensate. The value of what you stole is more than your annual income. Are you sure about that?" Olivia was speechless. "And there's also the matter of the alimony." Olivia turned to James, pleading in a tearful voice. "You'll pay, right? Even if you're not the president, you still earn well, right?" James was silent, looking down. "He can't pay it because he's about to be fired," I added. James looked up in surprise. "That's right. Since leaving the house, James has not shown up for work. Plus, with this commotion, there have been complaints from his boss," I explained. James looked like he might collapse on the floor. "But there's still a property division, right? I'll pay with that," Olivia said. "But that wasn't possible." "Karen and James had a prenuptial agreement about property. You didn't hear anything from James, did you? He never told you the inconvenient truths," I said, looking at James with disdain. The lawyer placed the contract on the table. The agreement stated that if the marriage lasted less than 5 years, neither party could claim the other's property. Currently, they were in the 3 years of their marriage, I continued. Olivia tried to grab the document as if to tear it up. You should handle that document carefully. It's a notarized deed, and you could be held legally accountable for damaging it, I warned her. At the mention of a crime, Olivia stopped. She then half-heartedly pleaded with James. James, you have savings, right? Use that to pay, Olivia said. James looked at Olivia with resentful eyes. What money? You always wanted sushi, steak, this, that. There's no way I have any savings left, he said. It appeared he also had debts from questionable sources. Olivia's shoulders slumped. It was a pitiable sight. The glamorous appearance that used to make men turn their heads was gone. This was the result of the seeds she had sown herself. The two sat looking haggard and lost, muttering, "This wasn't supposed to happen. What will I do now?" I decided to leave the rest to the lawyer and stood up to leave. Olivia, money isn't something you steal from others. It's something you earn through effort, I said. After that, the divorce went through smoothly. I set all of James's belongings back to his parents. His parents kept apologizing to me and even sent a letter of apology. Olivia was interrogated by the police for illegal entry and theft. My police report led to an investigation, and Olivia was arrested after admitting her guilt. Half of the stolen items had been sold, but I got the rest back. Despite the maliciousness of her actions, her show of remorse and intent to compensate suggested she might receive a suspended sentence. However, Olivia had other crimes. It was revealed that she had been stealing from men she met on a dating app, which meant she would likely face a prison sentence. No wonder she reacted so strongly to the mention of police and crime. James couldn't live in Olivia's apartment and moved to a 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. He's looking for a job, but his unexplained absences and poor attitude at his last job make it hard for him to get hired. For now, he's getting by with day labor. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work. Now I'm expanding our company's jewelry line to Europe. The idea came after a trip to Europe that I took as a break from everything. During that trip, I had the chance to share a glass of wine with the owner of a jewelry store in Switzerland. We talked passionately about jewelry designs. The owner and I hit it off, and he agreed to showcase my company's jewelry in his store. The owner is a wonderful man who, perhaps because of his own history with divorce, understands my heartache. To be honest, I'm focusing on sales in Switzerland partly to see him. It might be mixing business with pleasure, but I think I've earned this perk after all I've been through. That's how tough it has been for me. I receive regular updates on their situations from the lawyer after the divorce. I am Kira. I can't begin to tell you how much it hurts when your family betrays you. I hope none of you ever get to have this experience. From my early years, my parents have taught me to be a good person. They were very kind and generous people, so it was natural for me to help people out whenever they needed it. Slowly, my ability to help people became a problem for me. I was being taken advantage of, but I did nothing to remedy the situation. That was until I was hit with the biggest betrayal of my life. This story involves my husband, Archer, and son, Seth. I met my husband at work. I was a very good student in college and landed a great job after graduation. Yes, my job pays very well. No, I won't tell you how much. Archer worked at the company because he was the owner's son. Josh was his father and my ultimate boss. I was a very good worker at the company, so Josh took it upon himself to mentor me. He always said, "I can see that you are a great worker, Kira. That is one of the reasons why I offered you the job so many years back. You have seriously outlived my expectations. Thank you so much, Josh. It was all your guidance that helped me." It would be unprofessional to say this, but you remind me of my parents, you know. They died shortly before my graduation. I know that, Kira. I'm so sorry you lost your parents so early. Trust me, sometimes I wish Archer was a little bit like you. He never had his head in the business. He just likes to tell everyone how I own a company and have lots of money. I wish he would become a little more responsible, especially for the sake of Seth. I hope you can drill some sense into Archer. I'll try my best, Josh. Honestly, I was very relieved to know that you approve of our relationship. I was scared you would reject me, or worse. You are good for him, Kira. That's the issue I'm worried about. I hope he changes himself and makes himself worthy of you. Josh never had a very good relationship with his son. After dating Archer, I could see why he was so critical of his son. Archer was a charming man who loved me a lot, but he wasn't a very good person to everyone else. He cared nothing of his father and had a very casual relationship with his son, Seth. Seth looked up to his dad and considered him a friend. When I first met Archer, he was kind of a womanizer, so I kept my distance from him. He had Seth from one of his flings, and the woman left, terminated her parent rights when Seth was 5. Apparently, she wanted nothing to do with Seth or Archer. Archer used to bring Seth to the office and left him with me. Seth really loved me, and we developed a deep bond. Slowly, Archer and I started to date, and eventually we got married. Archer was really appreciative of me, he said. I am so glad I found an amazing woman like you. You know, most of the women I dated were after my money. You're so different. You spoiled me so much, even took Seth's responsibility. Why won't I, Archer? Seth is like my own son. I know I can never give kids, but I'm glad I found a son in Seth. You two have given me a great family. I can't believe you have readily taken all of Seth's expenses. Dad won't promote me, so I can't earn as much anymore. I'm so happy you help us maintain our lifestyle. Seth is getting all the things he asks for. It makes me so happy. I should have seen the warning signs long back. Archer married me only because I was willing to take full financial responsibility for Seth. Archer didn't earn much from the company since he wasn't fit to hold a high position. Whatever he earned was spent maintaining his posh lifestyle. He didn't want anyone to know that he wasn't as rich as he was. My income allowed him to put all responsibilities of Seth on me, while he used his salary on his lifestyle. I was happy taking care of Seth and Archer. Like I said, Seth and I were close, and he was like a son to me. I never considered him my stepson. Seth also adored and loved me. One day when he was 13, he said, "Kira, I really want to call you Mom. Will you be okay with it? I've been thinking about it for a while now. You're the only mom I know. My own mom abandoned me, but you didn't." What are you saying, Seth? I would be so happy to have you call me Mom. You're my son in all aspects. I have never thought of you as a stepson. You're my child. Of course, you can call me Mom. I never thought I would deserve this title, so I never asked you to call me Mom. You literally are the only one to deserve this title. In fact, I was hoping you would like to adopt me. My mom had terminated her rights long back. You can easily adopt me if you want. As much as I love dads, you are doing everything for me anyway. Oh my God, I would love to adopt you, Seth. You have no idea how long I have wanted this. I'll talk to Archer and start the process. You don't have to worry about anything. Turns out Archer already knew this plan. In fact, he was the one who suggested the adoption. I was so happy that they thought I deserved to be Seth's mom. Even on paper, I had no idea that everything was a plan to trap me. They simply wanted my money and were looking for legal ways to trap me completely. And like the stupid and loving woman I was, I just went along with it. Me, Stefan, and Archer were living like a happy family. But as Seth grew up, his demons became even more intense. I was paying for his school, his car, and his extracurricular classes. I even gave him an allowance to have fun. I didn't mind that I was spending a lot on him while his father spent all his money on himself. I never cared about these things, but one day my perfect family came crashing down around me. Josh passed away after suffering from cancer for 2 years. Surprisingly, he left the company to me because Archer was not capable of maintaining it. Seth and Archer were given $3 million each. They were pretty happy with what they got in the inheritance, but they didn't know that Josh had left a secret clause in his will. He had doubts about how Archer and Seth actually treated me, and he was right. I soon discovered that Archer was having an affair. In fact, he was cheating on me with a friend for years, and the worst thing was that Seth was supportive of the affair. The text I found between them was insane, and then I heard their conversation. Seth said, "I'm so glad you found someone worthy, Dad. Your girlfriend is such a fun woman. I really like her. You have so much fun together. She's nothing like Kira. Don't slip up, Seth. You need to keep calling her Mom. I don't want Kira to suspect anything. You have to pretend to be the perfect son for her. She might cut us off financially if she suspects anything." "I know that, Dad. It's just that it's hard for me to call a stranger Mom. She's not my mom and can't be one. I just don't want her to stop giving me money, so I keep pretending I like her. Your girlfriend is so much better." "We need to keep up this face, Seth. We can't let her doubt anything. Money is important to both of us." "Well, we have $6 million now. Why don't we just get rid of this woman? You can go marry your girlfriend instead. We don't need Kira in our life anymore." "I've been thinking about it, actually. Soon I will divorce her and marry my girlfriend. I'm just waiting for the money to be credited to my account." Hearing that absolutely crushed me. I never knew that this was what my husband and son thought about me. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I needed revenge. I walked in with my head held high and a serious expression on my face. There was no way I would let them see how much their words hurt me. Initially, they were a little surprised to see me. They were unsure if I had heard anything that they were discussing. I decided to drive their doubts away. I said, "So you are already planning to get rid of me, right? Well, I have some bad news for you guys. That $6 million you want? Well, that won't be given to you straight away." "What the hell do you mean? You will need my signature for it. Archer, you think your father was stupid enough to trust you and Seth with money? This is my father's inheritance. Me and Seth are entitled to it, to all of it. We are his blood. You are no one. Yeah, ultimately you're just my dad's wife. Why would Grandpa give you control over our inheritance? I guess you two have shown me my place today. Good to know that I am no one to you. All these years, I was just an ATM for you guys. It would make you sad to know that your grandpa has granted you an inheritance only if I think you should get one. After I give my signature to the estate manager, he'll transfer the money to you guys." No, that's not possible. Dad would never do that to us. Why don't you actually read the will properly to see what it said? I know you two saw $6 million and just started to celebrate here. I have a copy of the will ready just for you two. I gave them the copy and waited for them to read through it all. They went pale, and I could tell that they couldn't believe their eyes. In my head, I was laughing my ass off, however. I tried to maintain my composure. I did love Archer and Seth, so their betrayal was hurting me too, but I knew from experience that you shouldn't let your enemies see how they affect you. I watched silently as Archer and Seth tried to comprehend what was written in the will. When the truth finally dawned on them, they said, "I can see that Dad has put you in charge of everything. I guess it makes sense since you were so close to him. If you and Seth had even bothered to look after him, he wouldn't have done this. We don't want to hear that, Camera. Why don't you just tell us when you will put your signature on the documents? Me and Dad need the money for stuff. We can't wait forever. Now that I know what you two think of me, I'm not going to put my signature on the documents. I won't give you to a pen. You don't deserve it. You can't be serious. We deserve the money. You cannot prevent us from getting the money. This is our rights. I can do that. You do not have absolute rights over the inheritance. The will says it's very clear, however. If you still have doubts, you can talk to Josh's lawyer and find out. That will make things clear, won't it? Don't worry. We'll find out soon enough. I don't believe a word that comes out of your mouth. Once we get the money, Dad won't have to say married to you anymore, and I don't have to call a stranger Mom. Hearing that made my heart bleed from within. After years of loving Seth, this is how he saw me. I was a mere stranger to him. I stayed in a loveless marriage only because of Seth. I really did consider him my son. He betrayed me in the worst way possible. I had no words left for them. I let them go ahead with their plans. I didn't want to stay married to Archer or take care of Stephanie any longer. The next morning, I got up and went about my day. I went to the office and took over all the work that was left behind by Josh. He did give me his business and let me handle everything. I needed to make him proud, but I also hadn't forgotten what Archer and Seth were planning. So I made plans to teach them a lesson. I contacted 2 lawyers and prepared the documents I needed. Once Archer and Seth realized what they have done, I will give them these documents. It was only a matter of time. It took a week for Utter and Seth to figure out that the will was rock solid. They absolutely needed my signature to get their part of the inheritance, so they were fast to change their tune. They waited for me at home before I could return from work. Once I walked in, they scrambled to apologize to me. They said, "Kira, me, and Seth were talking about what happened, and we think that we are treating you unfairly. You're definitely one of us. We understand why Dad left you with such a huge responsibility. You're a good person." Yeah, we were being stupid. You know, with Grandpa's death and everything, emotions were high. We may have done something we regret. Oh, so you two have finally understood that you can't get $6 million without me? Good to know, guys. It doesn't take much for you to change your tune. You are misunderstanding us, Kira. We didn't mean any harm. We were being extremely immature, trying to be mean to you. We are family, and we should forgive each other. Mom, why can't you just forget it and move on? It was a small mistake. I'm sure you don't want to see your husband and son suffer, right? So I am Mom again for you now, no more stranger. It's rich of you to call me family. I distinctly remember you two telling me that I am not family and literally a stranger. Guess a stranger can become family when they have the power to control your finances. Come on, Kira, Seth is a child. He's made a mistake. Yes, I shouldn't have cheated on you, but it was a one-time thing. I ended things with her today. It will never happen again. Please forgive us. Let's move past this and start afresh. At that point, I knew it was time to reveal the decisions I made on my own. No matter what they said, I knew their behavior was fake. Archer cheated on me for years, and my son supported him blindly. They showered me with fake love so that I would support their lifestyle. The moment they thought they had lots of money, they were planning to get rid of me. It hurt like hell. I was done being taken advantage of. I said, "You know what? You're right, guys. We need to move past this and start afresh. Yes, I will be starting afresh, but without you two." You can't be serious, Kira. We are married and a couple. Seth is our son. You simply can't abandon him. You cannot do this to us. I already have. You two betrayed me in the worst way possible. I was heartbroken to find out that you were cheating on me. What hurts worse was the fact that Seth covered it up for you. I know I made a mistake, Mom. I didn't know any better. You need to forgive me. Absolutely not, Seth. I'll never forgive you too. In fact, here are some things that I have already done. I have filed for divorce. The folder contains the divorce papers and an eviction notice. You have 1 month to vacate my house. I'm done being exploited. Seth and Archer looked extremely panicked when they saw the papers. Archer started to shake, while Seth had tears in his eyes. No, those emotions were not from losing me. They were just anxious that I won't give them the inheritance, and they were right. They said, "You can't divorce me, Kira. I won't allow it. What about my inheritance? What will happen to that? You need to sign it over to me. I'll never provide my signature on the inheritance papers. You two don't deserve mine or Josh's money. He knew exactly what kind of money grabbers you are, so he put that clause in his will. He was right about you too. Now that I know your true faces, I'll never put my signatures on those papers. Mom, please don't do this. We need that money. You are going to abandon us. That doesn't work a good job, and neither do I. How will I get by without an inheritance? You're kicking us out, but we have no place to go. Seth and Archer started to beg me to give them the inheritance, but neither of them even tried to stop me from leaving. That was the final blow for me. I gave them a piece of my mind and left them crying in their living room. I won't go into the details of what I said. It was very strongly worded and came from the bottom of my heart. Even thinking of what they had done still hurts me, but I stayed strong and didn't sway with their tears. A month passed after that, and Stefan and Archer were forced to leave the house. Archer did try to fight me in everything, from the divorce to the eviction, but with very little money in his name, he didn't have the funds to do much. Plus, his lawyers made it clear that he had no legal leg to stand on. Thankfully, I had proof of his cheating. I live in a state where cheating on a spouse stops the cheater from getting any alimony or assets, so Archer was left with nothing. Since Seth was already 18, I had no legal obligations to pay child support. Archer ultimately agreed to a mutual divorce. He knew that it was impossible for him to pay a lawyer for a long time. I mean, he did waste quite some money trying to get his inheritance without my signature. Seth begged me to be in his life like his mother. Archer's mistress is apparently a minimum wage worker. This would make life very difficult for him. I know some people will not agree with me, but I want nothing to do with either of them anymore. Seth made it clear that I was just a money machine for him. I couldn't just forgive that. It's been a whole year since my divorce. Archer and Seth couldn't have their happy family after all. The mistress ran as soon as she realized that Archer had no money. Archer and Seth now live in a small apartment. Seth was forced to get a job because his father refused to fund his life. The two now have a very sour relationship and rarely speak to each other. They did try to contact me, but I rejected both of their attempts. I have moved on with my life. I'm seeing someone much better than Archer. We're taking things slow, so wish me luck so that I can have a better life away from toxic people. My name is Julie. I currently work with my husband Scott at his family's small business. This business is managed by my father-in-law Paul. It's a cozy place with about 5 employees. Paul doesn't get involved much in the daily work. Instead, Scott, who will soon take over as president, works hard. He looks for new clients and projects, showing his dedication to growing the business. When we have a big project, all the employees come together enthusiastically, creating a vibrant atmosphere. I have been working here for 12 years since I got married. Hey, Julie, how long do you plan on clinging to our family business? My mother-in-law, Olivia, asked this as I came home early to make dinner while Scott was still at the office. Olivia had retired from the business when Scott and I got married and seemed happy about her retirement, but now, with more free time, she often criticized me. "What do you mean by clinging?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Olivia sharply replied, "Exactly what it sounds like. You must have married Scott because you couldn't find a job anywhere else, and now you're just taking advantage of our company." I sighed to myself. These kinds of comments from her were becoming more common. When I married, I left my previous job and joined Scott's family business by choice, not because I was fired. For some reason, Olivia thought I was completely unskilled at my job. I said before that it's not that I couldn't work somewhere else. I chose to join Scott's company, I told her. But she answered dismissively, "I can see right through your real intentions." She thought she knew everything about me and walked back to the living room. However, the problems with my mother-in-law weren't just her words. She had quit her job, promising to look after the house, but she never helped out. My father-in-law often asked her to do some chores since she was home all day, but she stubbornly refused, saying, "I've worked all my life. Now it's the daughter-in-law's turn to do the housework." As a result, I usually ended up making dinner. Olivia seemed to make and eat her own lunch as she liked, but she never cleaned up afterward. Each day, as I returned from my errands, the sight of piled-up plates and utensils greeted me, stirring a mix of frustration and resignation. Gathering my courage, I decided to address this domestic issue one sunny afternoon. "Olivia," I began hesitantly, trying to sound as diplomatic as possible, "I've noticed the dishes often get left in the sink. It would be really helpful if you could tidy up after your meals. It's just a small request, but it would mean a lot to me." To my dismay, Olivia's response was far from understanding. Her eyes flashed with anger as she snapped, "Are you trying to give me orders in my own house? You're just a daughter-in-law. How dare you dictate what I should do?" Her sharp and unyielding words reminded me of the delicate balance in our family dynamics. "I wish Helen were here instead of you," Olivia continued, her voice laced with a mix of longing and bitterness. Helen, Scott's younger sister and my sister-in-law, was a spirited and ambitious woman. Our encounters had been limited to brief formal meetings, and she was notably absent from our wedding, having canceled at the last minute. I later learned from Scott that she had overindulged with friends the night before and was nursing a hangover, unable to attend. Despite this, Helen pursued her dreams fiercely, relocating to Jersey after her college graduation to dive into the bustling world of fashion design. Trying to change the subject, I mentioned Helen's hard work and dedication. "Helen's really making a name for herself in Jersey, working hard in her field," I said, hoping to ease the tension. However, Olivia's views on Jersey were negative. Jersey, that cold, impersonal city. It's no place for someone as warm-hearted as Helen. "And you're from Jersey too, aren't you? Now it all makes sense. You're always so distant towards me." Caught in this tiring conversation, I realized that if I didn't start preparing dinner soon, we'd be eating much later than usual. While dealing with my own frustrations, I managed to stay calm. "Mom, let's continue this conversation later. I need to focus on getting dinner ready or we'll be eating quite late tonight." With some reluctance, Olivia finally went back to the living room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the noise of the cooking utensils. Paul and Scott were both aware of Olivia's mistreatment towards me as a daughter-in-law and tried to intervene whenever they saw it happening. However, their efforts seemed to have little effect. Each time they confronted the situation, their faces showed concern and frustration, showing their desire to create harmony in our family. Ironically, whenever Paul and Scott scolded Olivia for her behavior, she took out her anger on me, becoming even more hostile and sharp with her words. Her face, usually kind and gentle, became twisted with disdain, her tone cutting deeper than before. Although I had never been physically hurt, the emotional impact of Olivia's words was significant. Paul and Scott's support had been my comfort, helping me somewhat ignore Olivia's harsh words. Until then, one morning, just after I had finished cleaning up from breakfast and was preparing to leave for work, something unimaginable happened. In the midst of the morning rush as I was hurrying, Olivia suddenly exclaimed, "Oh my, what a mess!" And without warning, she poured a bucket of water over my handbag. I was stunned, a mix of shock and anger making me speechless. "What are you doing, Olivia?" I managed to ask, my voice trembling with disbelief. Olivia's response was dismissive, her tone like that of a mischievous child. "Oh, was that your stuff? I thought it was just a big piece of trash," she said dismissively, which made me even angrier. "Even if you thought it was trash, who pours water on it? What kind of thinking is that? Now the carpet is all wet. Why would you do something like this?" I was really upset as I quickly took the wet things out of my bag, including important work documents, and laid them on the table. Olivia looked calm and didn't seem sorry or worried about how upset I was. "Because you don't need to go to work anymore," she said coolly. I was shocked. In our living room, filled with morning light, I sat across from Olivia. Her face was colder and more determined than usual. It was as if she had made a decision that would change everything. "Excuse me," I said, confused and surprised. "You've been in this house for 12 years, but now I can finally get rid of you," she declared. Her words hurt me deeply, and her voice had a level of anger and determination I had never heard before. My mind spun and my heart ached. "Getting rid of me?" I asked, unable to believe what I was hearing. Her words made me feel like an outsider in this family. "Actually, my daughter is joining the company, so we need you to leave. Today's your last day. All you have to do is bow your head to your father-in-law and Scott, apologizing for all the trouble you've caused," she said with a mocking laugh. She was using my job to push me out. I had spent years at that job earning respect and making memories. I was shocked and hurt. My devotion to this family seemed to mean nothing to her. It horrified me not just that she acted this way, but that after 12 years of hard work, she could ask me to leave so her daughter could take my place. It felt like my years of effort were being disregarded. "Really? Are you sure about this? Wasn't Helen working in a clothing store in Jersey?" I asked, reflecting my confusion and worry. My job was more than just a paycheck. It was my way of fulfilling myself. Meanwhile, Helen, my sister-in-law, seemed to have grown tired of city life and decided to come back to the family. She said she was tired of the unfriendly people in Jersey, so I told her if she came back home, I'd have a job ready for her. She agreed to return immediately. "Now that she's coming back, I want you out of this house," Olivia told me. I couldn't believe her words. She was ready to turn my life upside down with just one decision, completely ignoring my role in the family and not even listening to me. She handed me an envelope, saying, "I've written your resignation letter." And just like that, she kicked me out. My heart broke. Everything I had built over the years seemed worthless, treated like just a piece of paper. Her act deeply hurt our family bond. I walked the company just a quick 5-minute walk from my house. As I walked under the cool morning sky, each step was heavy with the weight of what was happening. When I told my father-in-law, Paul, and my husband's, Scott, about what my mother-in-law had said, they were shocked but stayed calm. They suggested that maybe it was time for me to resign to show her the reality of the situation. This idea upset me deeply. I had worked hard in our family business for years and barely knew what a long vacation was like aside from short breaks during Thanksgiving and the holiday season. Encouraged by Scott and Paul's kind words, "Why don't you spread your wings for a change?" I decided to go on a little trip. As I packed, I thought a lot about my life, my choices, and what was ahead. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law, Helen, who was supposed to replace me at the company, shockingly didn't show up until 3:00 p.m. Her lack of responsibility disappointed Scott and Paul, who had been managing without me. Helen seemed not interested in learning the work, despite their efforts to teach her. Hearing this made me worry about the future of our company, even as I looked forward to my trip, leaving without seeing my mother-in-law. I quickly started my journey. During the trip, as I enjoyed the view from the train, I reflected on my life, past, present, and future, and savored local seafood delicacies. I thought deeply about myself, my family, and our business. But on the 5 days of my trip, the peace was broken when Helen called me crying. "What's going on?" I asked. "Mom said it was an easy job, just sitting in a chair, but Scott and Dad are acting like I can't do anything right," she said. Her words, likely influenced by my mother-in-law, surprised me. Even as I was enjoying my break, I decided it was time to address the situation. "So, Helen, how good are you with computers?" I asked her hesitantly. She replied, "Well, I usually watch videos online and I play games too." This question was to see if Helen could adjust to a new job. Having worked in a clothing store in Jersey for a while, her computer skills seemed basic. "Do you know how to use Word or Excel?" I asked. Helen looked confused, showing she wasn't familiar with these tools in a professional setting. Even in clothing stores, tasks like managing sales data in Excel or recording customer info in Word are common. Have you ever worked with image editing, video editing, or audio editing software? Do you have any experience with such tools? I asked. Helen, clearly puzzled, replied, "What's all that?" This question aimed to dig deeper into her technical skills to better understand her capabilities. Considering her background in the apparel industry, it's unlikely she never used a computer. Tasks like tracking sales, managing inventory, and inputting customer data would have required her to use Excel. When asked if she can handle calculations for sales or fill in documents, she confidently said, "I can do that." However, when I asked if she could also calculate tax, her confidence faded, and she answered uncertainly, this question tested her math skills and her ability to use them in a business context. While Helen might have other skills, it was clear she was insecure about the necessary skills for the job. Her discomfort seemed mainly due to her struggle with calculations, which could explain why she faced criticism from Paul and Scott. First and foremost, I needed to show my mother-in-law and those who tried to push me out that they were mistaken. "Since you're taking over my job," I began, I told Helen that she needed to handle the accounting tasks well and remember to be professional in her emails, because a casual tone that might be fine with friends doesn't work for business. She would also be in charge of scheduling the staff shifts. Even though our team is small, we carefully consider everyone's time off requests, so she shouldn't just think about what's convenient for her. As I listed these expectations, I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the phone. But I was told I wouldn't have to do anything. "Why are there so many tasks? I didn't come back home for this," she said, and then abruptly ended the call. Over the next 4 days, I decided to enjoy sightseeing in Jersey, the place Helen had left. My time there showed me that not everyone in Jersey is unfriendly. Actually, finding someone as cold-hearted as my mother-in-law and Helen seemed rare. A week after I left my job, I returned to my in-laws' house. When I arrived, Olivia, looking very upset, confronted me angrily. "How dare you make my daughter cry? You won't get away with this," she yelled, her eyes full of anger and misunderstanding. She tried to grab me, but Scott and Paul quickly stepped in to calm her down. Though her anger didn't seem to lessen, Scott sighed deeply before saying, "Helen is upset because she was scolded for trying to boss her employees around despite not being able to do the job right. It's not Julie's fault. Besides, Julie hasn't been here for a week, so she couldn't have upset Helen." "Mom, you really need to stop these groundless accusations," but Olivia kept blaming me. "It's because of her. This woman is the reason for Helen's trouble," she claimed, her voice emotional and filled with baseless suspicions. "Where is Helen, by the way?" I asked, looking around the living room, but Helen was nowhere to be seen. Her absence added more confusion to an already puzzling situation. While it didn't matter to me that Olivia was upset about Helen, I knew Helen didn't have many options since she had ended her lease at her apartment in Jersey. I thought Helen would be at her parents' house, but she wasn't there, which made me wonder. Helen's locked herself in her room. She's been crying and saying she doesn't want to go to work anymore, Scott explained. It seemed like Helen had avoided learning the job properly. It was understandable, though, because she didn't have the skills needed to replace me. "You've been turning Scott and Paul against me, haven't you? Otherwise, they wouldn't say the company ran better with you than with Helen, who can't do the job," Olivia accused me sharply. Her words were filled with long-standing misunderstandings and prejudices, leaving me completely baffled. She seemed to have always seen me as an opponent, her words reflecting years of wrong ideas. Scott let out a heavy sigh, his face showing his tiredness and frustration with the complicated emotions in our family. He had tried many times to clear up the misunderstandings among family members, but it didn't seem to work very well. "Mom, I know it might sound odd coming from me, but Julie is truly exceptional at her work. She's certified in bookkeeping, and her secretarial skills are top-notch. Moreover, she studied Spanish and even has experience studying abroad. When it comes to dealing with multiple languages at our company, Julie handles everything," Scott said with a sense of pride. His mother, Olivia, looked very surprised. She had assumed that I quit my job as soon as I joined the family, so she had no idea about my contributions and achievements at work. What? That sounds like something straight out of a TV drama, I thought, recalling my college days. I was so focused on getting various certifications that I immersed myself in my studies, so much that I barely had time for clubs or a romantic relationship. It was during this busy time that I met Scott, who came to my company for business. As I found myself sharing the story of how Scott and I first met, I realized that this wasn't what Olivia wanted to hear, so I quickly got back to the main point. In short, I was responsible for a lot of tasks at the company, from handling accounting to scheduling, working with other companies, and managing employee shifts. Thanks to that, I could reach out to other businesses for deals, making the work environment much more comfortable than when Olivia was around, Scott added, leaving Olivia speechless. Just then, Paul, Scott's father, made a comment that surprised me. "We're going to shut down the company soon, actually. Helen made a big mistake. Even though she was supposed to prepare some documents, she decided to handle phone calls because it seemed more fun. While Scott and I were away, she ended up being rude to the person in charge from another company." Of course, I got a call to confirm this. Hearing this, I was so shocked that I instinctively covered my mouth with my hand. "I can't believe Helen would do something like that," I murmured, filled with disbelief. The thought that Helen's actions might lead to the downfall of our company went through my mind, filling me with dread. However, as I was lost in these anxious thoughts, the story took an unexpected turn. When I explained the situation, they suggested it might be time to end the family business. "We had mentioned this to you before, right? About being absorbed by another company," they said. Then the president of the company stepped forward, saying he was interested if Julie and I were involved. This was an unexpected but long-hoped-for development. Running a family business has its limits, and it's uncertain whether we could consistently attract stable customers. That's why Scott had always worked hard in sales, trying to secure new clients. Being absorbed by a larger company could mean having a steady base of customers. The future, once uncertain, suddenly seemed to have a bit of hope. However, this news only brought relief to me, Scott, and his father. Scott's mother suddenly opposed the idea, saying, "That's not acceptable. Scott must become the president. This company is ours, isn't it?" I was surprised by this sudden change. It seemed that more than a stable future, Olivia was concerned about maintaining the prestige of being part of a company president's family. "And you're telling me he's not going to be the president anymore? Absolutely not acceptable," Olivia exclaimed passionately. This commotion caught the interest of Helen, who was upstairs in her room, leading her to come down to the living room to see what was happening. In response to the chaos started by Olivia, Paul spoke up calmly but firmly. "I am divorcing you. So either way, you will no longer be part of this executive family. Not only have you not changed your attitude towards my son's wife, but you also neglect household chores. To top it off, you spend your days out with young men instead of being home. I have no intention of supporting such a wife any longer." This was news to both me and Scott. We were so shocked that we could only stare at Paul with wide eyes. It seemed he had planned to discuss divorce from the beginning, as he took out divorce papers and a photo of Olivia with a young man from the living room shelf, placing them on the table. "If you sign the divorce papers now and leave with your belongings, I won't ask for alimony. I know getting any money from you would be pointless anyway," Paul said. "So unfair. How can you say that? Haven't I been devoted to this house all these years?" Olivia protested. "Devoted to this house? Have you done any real housework in the last 12 years? Does spending someone else's money on young men count as devotion to the house?" Paul countered. It was the first time we saw him this angry. Seeing this, Helen, who had come down to the living room, was visibly shaking from shock. "Helen, you're part of this too. You came back home because you couldn't make it in Jersey, and now you can't find a job but still act superior. In the end, you stopped working entirely. Who did you inherit this escapism from? It's time for you to leave this house too," he continued. Next, we saw Helen's shock and resistance. She believed she was an important member of the family. The reality was different. "Wait a minute, Dad. I might be a lost cause, but I'm your precious daughter, right?" she said. The family conflict deepened as Helen tried to assert her place, revealing her betrayal towards her mother. "Helen, are you betraying me now?" Olivia exclaimed, feeling betrayed by her daughter at the last moment. However, as the two started to argue loudly, Paul sternly silenced them with a shout. "If I just kick you out, it'll cause trouble for everyone. So I've asked an acquaintance to take you in. They'll be here soon to pick you up. Get your minimum belongings ready." Left with no choice, Olivia and Helen began packing their belongings. Then an acquaintance of Paul arrived to take Olivia and Helen away. The person who came to pick them up was running a factory with dormitories, and it seemed they would be working there. Meanwhile, Scott Paul and I talked to the employees about the company being absorbed and prepared for the busy days ahead for our future. Finally, I found out I was pregnant. When I told the president of the company, he was delighted and promised to send someone to replace me, which was a huge relief. Currently, Scott and Paul are working even harder for the sake of our upcoming child.